Hi, my name is Jack and I'm an addict. How do I keep this within 20 minutes, I suppose? It's one thing I've never really been able to do is to keep to a certain time when sharing. I've been around the fellowships since 1992, I suppose. I was shown my first meeting at 14 years old. And I'll go into that in a little while, but I grew up in a small market town surrounded by mining towns in West Yorkshire. So I suppose I grew up around sort of abject poverty when the mines closed, but I grew up in quite a nice house on a nice estate. I had a good upbringing. Both my parents, really good parents, respected within the community. But ever since I was young, I never really felt like I fit in anywhere, and really sort of struggled with that for most of my life. And when the stinking thinking hits, I still do sometimes. That's part of mental illness, I suppose. But I suppose it went dark for me when on my 8th birthday I got filled up with pop and sweets and tea and biscuits and cakes and all these nice things and nice presents. I had a really good day, and then that night I was sat on my mum's knee, and I remember a tear in her eye vividly, and she said, "You know that we love you very much, but you're not my son. You were born to someone else, and she wasn't able to keep you, so we took you on." And that's when the light went out for me, because it fueled this fear of loss, resentment, self-pity, hate, fear of just losing everything. And I guess I kind of lost myself in that. And I didn't know who I was, so I became sort of a blank slate, a bit of a chameleon. I became very good at mimicking people, mimicking the way that they walked, they spoke, they were. I became quite a good impressionist. I became a really good liar, I suppose. I would tell these sort of mad lies at school. It was difficult for me anyway, because I couldn't read and write. I really struggled with that. I really struggled with learning and education, so that became part of my behaviour. So I was seen as a naughty child, so I was sent to a special school. It was really a place for maladjusted and wayward children that did very little academically but a lot physically. So by the time I left school, I could pretty much teach abseiling, climbing, canoeing, potholing, kayaking. I became very good at cross country. The school was surrounded by fields that were full of magic mushrooms, so that was great for me. We had teachers that weren't really bothered. As long as we didn't cause any trouble, we were all right. The only academic things I left school with was a certificate on changing a fuse and a plug, and riding a 50cc moped and answering a private telephone. And you know, I left school with a heart full of hate, resentment, fear. You know, I came out of that into nothing. The college wouldn't take me on. Couldn't walk into a job. I left home pretty early. I was dealing with not only these things, but I was also dealing with a secret that when I started out in the fellowship at 14, I was physically abused and raped by my sponsor. And I carried that in my heart, in my mind for years. And I used it to use, really. I felt dirty and horrible and disgusting, and if I felt that way, then what did I need to do but take whatever I could to just forget it. My best friend threw himself in front of a train in front of me at one point, and I just when I first tried to kill myself, because I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. I couldn't live. And I struggled with mental illness my whole life. I moved away in 1999 after I lost my best friend in a car accident, and he's the one that had got me clean the first time, got me away from, you know, the drugs, and he taught me how to be a magician, how to DJ, and you know, it was good. He was the one that really encouraged my poetry and started me to learn to read and write properly. And you know, I went to prison for a little while because I vented all this anger, and I ended up nearly killing somebody. And when I got out, it wasn't long before he died. So I really sort of fell into that, so I moved away. So I moved to Portsmouth, just outside Portsmouth, and I got involved with the Cranston project, and I started on my Prince's Trust, and I'd got 6 months clean. And when I got 6 months clean, you know, I started my Prince's Trust, and you know, by the time I'd finished, I was about 9 months clean. You know, I graduated. I'd met my girlfriend. She lived in Norwich, where I still live, or just outside. And you know, I stayed clean. I had 12 years, or what I, you know, said was 12 years under my belt, but I did use cannabis a lot, and counted myself clean. I was going to meetings, and you know, I was living a life of, you know, look at me, saying how good I was doing, but really inside I was falling apart. My marriage began to fall apart, and I ended up homeless, ill. I'm back on the gear, and I was on and off for several years. In late 2013, I found myself at a local food bank on a Friday morning. We could go in and we could have a coffee and some chat and biscuits and stuff like that, run by the local church. And the woman that served me took pity on me. She bought me cigarettes, and you know, bought me a sandwich, and you know, took me out for a meal. That woman's now my wife, I might add. But I had like a couple of really dark years on and off. And I suppose it was 26th of June 2014 when I was sat in a crack house. I smoking a bowl. It must have been about 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night. And it's a place where I used to frequent, so, you know, they knew me, and, you know, so nobody would really bother me. I'd sit on a chair in the corner and I'd just fall asleep. And I had lost everything. I'd lost my children, my wife, my home, everything. You know, I was lucky if I could sleep on people's sofas. Occasionally I'd be allowed to sleep on the sofa at the weekend so I could have my daughter. I'd been staying part-time with a guy in his spare room, but I was using with him and smoking with him and going out and stealing and stuff like that, and I just wasn't living a good life. And I was sat in this crack house and I just said, God, look, I don't even know if you exist, but if you do, please take away this thirst, this hunger. I can't live like this anymore. I've lost everything and I want it back. You know, either get rid of this first or take me so I don't feel this pain anymore, or give me a life where I can make myself proud and where I can make other people proud. And I fell asleep and I woke up just before midnight. A little bit rattly, but I was alright. And I left, but there, for the grace of God, I haven't used since. So, you know, that was the 27th of June 2014. I'd been with my partner for a little while, and, you know, I moved in with her, and things were fine. And then in March 2015, 9th of March 2015, I became very ill and ended up in hospital because of the life that I'd lived. My body had started failing, my lungs had failed, I had tuberculosis, pleurisy, type 2 lung failure, double pneumonia, and I had a complete and utter psychological, spiritual and physical breakdown, and I was convinced that I was in the middle of a pandemic that I'd caused, that I'd given everybody TB. People were dying around me. They were holding kangaroo court outside my door at the hospital. I was being judged for every single action that I'd ever done wrong, for every single crime, for every single lie. People, my family, my friends were dying, and they were being replaced by robots and puppets. And this is... and I died, albeit for 4 minutes. I was 6 stone 6 in a hospital bed. I couldn't eat, my mouth was full of blisters. And I just wanted to die. I thought God was punishing me. And then I gave my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand him now. And I met Jesus at the end of my bed. And I started to get better. All in all, I was in hospital for nearly 2 months. And it changed me. When I died someone else. And when I came back a new creation. Not saying everything's been peachy creamy hunky-dory, because it hasn't, and it's not. We all know things that go wrong, you know, but there, for the grace of God, I'm you know, it's like 6 years, 8 months and just over 2 weeks clean, but you know, things have happened. I lost my real mum to cancer in 2016, and I lost my 2-day-old niece because she was murdered by her father, who in turn was murdered in his prison cell months later. So we were left with no answers. I have fought to get my family back, to get my relationship with my daughter. I have a friendship with my ex-wife. I'm remarried. You know, I'm part of a blended family. In recovery, it hasn't all been doom and gloom, you know. In recovery, I have written 3 books. You know, one of them was co-written and is a bestseller. And I think it was late 2016, I was asked to go and speak to a director about my life and about addiction for a film that they were doing, a Hollywood film that was being done in my city. So I did, and I was invited to play Ray. That was a souvenir part when I was invited to play Ray, a heroin addict. I consulted on the film, and I, you know, I helped do the set dressing and stuff like that, and that really launched my career. I'm a respected investigative journalist. I am a respected actor. I've been nominated for awards in, you know, for films that I've made. You know, and I have a good life because, unlike before, I work a program, I have accountability partners, I speak to my sponsor, I do the steps, I work with several other former criminals like myself to educate people on finding redemption, finding a new way of life, and I suppose that's where I'm at now. You know, I do podcasts and things like that, but I'm now at the point where I'm branching out into speaking, hence me doing this, really. You know, looking to build my confidence and get out onto the recovery circuit, really, and just, you know, share a bit more about my story. You know, there are a lot of things in between that you know, because of the time that I can't share. But you know, I'm getting there a day at a time. I'm being extremely blessed of this past 6 odd years, you know, and you know, it's not all been easy, but like I said, but this time I've been working the program. You know, I remember I would always see people within the program, and I would see them have this amazing life and sobriety, and I wanted that, but I wasn't willing to work for it. So the next best thing for me was to look like I was doing it. It's not just lying to other people, it's lying to yourself. So, you know, but there, for the grace of God, go I. I'm clean, I'm sober, I'm happy, I've got a good life. and I'm in a position where now I can share my life and share my story with people, to help them understand addiction and the life of a former homeless junkie criminal, I suppose. But I'm a member of a few groups on Facebook, a few recovery groups, and I want to start, you know, making videos. You know, I'm doing this to help me sort of build my confidence up. You know, I do suffer with mental health issues at times. I think we all do, but as long as I surrender to win and hand it over to God as I understand him, then I'm part of the way there. So thanks for listening to me babble on, and I should hope to speak to you again soon. Cheers guys.